What it do, family? It's your boy King Crowder, checking back in with another edition of history that you should know or people that we should discuss. Today's lesson will be on the great J.B. Stradford. J.B. Stradford was known as John the Baptist, Christian origin. He was born in 1861, from a black businessman and a community activist. Mr. Stradford was actually born in Versailles, Kentucky, to his father, J.C., whose name was Julius Caesar. His father was enslaved, and the daughter befriended him and taught Mr. J.C. Stradford how to read. When Mr. Stradford learned how to read, he learned about the Emancipation Proclamation. And when he petitioned himself to become a freedman, they actually denied him access, saying he has no rights to that at the time. So JC, who was self-educated from himself and self-taught himself how to read, actually created a travel permission slip pass, and him and his family fled to Ontario, Canada. Around this time, J.C. Stradford picked up the surname of Stradford to the family legacy, so they could not find him in return. As Senior Stradford raised up, he really implemented in J.B. the thought of being self-sufficient, educating yourself, and working hard. As J.B. began to grow up and educate himself as a young man, he pushed education to J.B. J.B. enrolled in Oberlin College in Ohio. At that time, J.B. met his wife, Augusta, there. The couple were the first ever black students to graduate from that university, a major milestone in that history. J.B. went to acquire his law degree from Indiana University at 38 years old. So he had a good work gap years where he was working in business, and he decided to become an attorney. He began practicing law in Indianapolis upon graduation. J.B. launched his first hotel venture in Alexander, Indiana in 1899, and a year later, the hotel business went out of business. So he started a business and immediately failed. Upon this failure, J.B. got the insight that black towns throughout the United States were beginning to boom. So when he looked around for the opportunity, he heard about Tulsa and the plentiful opportunity they had in there for blacks at the time looking to grow and extend their business. The wonderful thing about J.B. is that him and Mr. Gurley, O.D.W. Gurley, became best friends. As their friendship began to grow and their mutual enthusiasm towards business, Mr. Gurley was more of the business tycoon. Mr. Stradford had more of the legal side and understanding of the U.S., how it was working. Among this partnership began to form, they immediately got into purchasing land, rental properties, and other strong ventures over the next 18 years. Mr. Stradford amassed a fortune of over $125,000 in a short period of time. Mind you, this was Jim Crow South, segregation, hate crimes, really anti-black hatred going around. And this gentleman amassed a fortune that large in that short span of time. The one thing that was awesome about Mr. Stradford that most people do not know is that the Stradford hotel business that we always see in the Tulsa hotels, that was named after him. He was actually the one that implemented that higher end hotel business that was the first black one nationwide back in the early 1900s. So this gentleman really had the mindset to grow that he knew that blacks actually had to have a luxury business and a nice place for people to come in that were travelers. So he had the Stradford hotels, he had rooming businesses, how people came in from freed slaves that were sharecroppers that needed places to stay. He had over 16 building brick apartment buildings, 16 in that area. He had pool halls, shoe signers, bath houses so people can come in and just bathe. And each one of them earned an amassed income per month. He was one of the largest black property owners that was really into that type of business. As the business began to pass, August 4th, 1916, the city of Tulsa passed a bogus racial law saying that local businesses could not be 600 feet among white businesses. So the whites in that area really began to get jealous, man, because they were really flourishing. The blacks in that economy were spending so much with each other, reinvesting with each other, that their dollar began to shine. We clearly knew that the wrong was racist, and JB had enough clout to go against it at that time and to fight him. Knowing that he was an attorney himself, he actually petitioned and went against it. So when the sparks and the racial injustices began to display itself really earlier, Mr. Stradford was one of the ones on the forefront who fought for those rights, who could articulate himself being a lawyer, an attorney himself by trade. The one thing that was truly sad is that when the Tulsa genocide massacre began to happen, all the wealth that Mr. Stradford immersed himself in the past 20 years went away instantly. The one thing that was truly sad about it is that when Mr. Stradford and Mr. Gurley were the one that got to leave, he was immediately charged, JB was immediately charged with insanity in a riot, and they wanted to give him the death penalty. Hearing about this going on, he fled to Chicago, never to come back to Oklahoma, and passed away December 11, 1935. This was a business tycoon in a black spot of town that we never mentioned when we mentioned tycoons in the early 19th centuries. He was an innovator. He was an attorney. He was a real estate mogul. He was a hotel entrepreneur. He invested in himself and his people around a time where he could receive little to no equity amongst the United States, strictly working in the black community that he did. JB Mr. Stradford was a true pioneer, and his legacy needs to be highlighted and lived on, that even through the height of not having fair and equality, he figured out a way to make it happen. I definitely feel like this is an important figure that we need to take a deep dive in, that everyone should know about. Mr. Stradford, the pioneer himself, along with that Tulsa legacy, is somebody that we should all know. All right, man, it's your boy King Crowder checking out. I hope you like this series about this gentleman taking a close historical dive about people that we do not highlight enough on. I want to tell you again, for checking back in with me, man, please comment, like, subscribe, any other things you want to see. Peace.